archaeology, but I cannot share my screen. I think there is a...
Oh, yes. Csak ide kell marma.
First.
Ne. Marma. Just a moment.
Yes, sure.
Yeah, excuse me. But now
Should work now.
Yeah, it's a Saturday morning. Excuse me so much. A little bit. Wow, thank you.
So it's working. Yes, good. So this is the topic of today. I choose public archaeology in Romania because last week we were talking about the beginnings of museology and how archaeological heritage in Transylvania was somehow presented for the greater public, and how museology as also a tool of communication with the greater public began in the 19th century. And in this lecture, I will come to the present, to the 20th century, 21st century, and how public archaeology arrives in Romania, when this happened, and what are the perspectives for this phenomenon. So I sometimes I hear some voices, but it's probably from the microphone of other colleagues. So maybe the best solution would be if the other colleagues close the microphones.
Yeah, we will ask. Ask
Okay, I think it's okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So public archaeology in Romania. But first, I would I would speak shortly what we call public archaeology. Public archaeology, of course, arrives in the post-war era in Europe and the United States. So we are talking about the second half of the 20th century. After the Second World War, in Europe especially, of course, the urban landscape was heavily affected by the war. Many of the buildings were destroyed in Germany, also in the UK, in Central East Europe, so basically everywhere in Europe. It was a big problem to reorganize the urban landscape. And this provoked, of course, major urban investments, major urban changes, and what we call today as urban archaeology, the excavation of the cities and the history of the cities, excavating in urban environments, arrives, or at least became more popular after the Second World War. One famous case study is from London, from the 1950s, when they discovered in London the Walbrook Mitreum, a Roman sanctuary dedicated to Mithras, the famous Mitreum dedicated to Mithras in the today the Bloomberg area, in the very heart of the financial center of London. And the discovery of this sanctuary, which was the very first Roman temple ever discovered in London, became basically a touristic attraction. You can see in these photos the queue of the Londoners were staying to watch this excavation site. It was a real public event for many days, for many weeks. Archaeologists were basically excavating in front of the great public. So it was a public event. It was highly popularized by the local press, and the Londoners, the local people, realized for the very first time that under their modern city there are many ancient or medieval layers. So it was the very first moment, awakened moment of the city, when they realized that archaeology is real in London, and archaeology can be also very attractive. This moment, the excavation of the Walbrook Mitreum and how they presented for the greater public, was the very first moment of what we call today as public archaeology, speaking, communicating with the greater public through the archaeological material. today, of course, if you visit London in the Walbrook site, the Bloomberg building, it's a modern financial building, of course, the famous Bloomberg company. They invested millions of euros in this building. It's one of the most interactive archaeological sites. It presents the sanctuary of Mithras, as you can see, in situ. They moved the building in another place, and now you can see it reconstructed in a modern building with holograms, voice effects. So basically, all of the sensual effects are touched by this building. It's really very beautifully presented archaeological site. And also the archaeological material they discovered. You can visit there, and there are many different ways of museal pedagogy. So it's one of the most innovative museums I ever visited. I really recommend to see. Somehow it's a prototype of public archaeology or modern museology in urban context. So this was the beginning in the 1950s in London, and of course, later in the 1970s in the United States, archaeology became an issue. Obviously, we know very well the problems of the social sciences, humanities. It's always a big problem for in conflict on the neoliberal market of science. Knowledge production, science production now is in a crisis since the 1970s at least, or even before. And this was true also for archaeology in the United States. The very existence of this discipline, archaeology, in the United States obviously has other dimensions than in Europe. It's a totally different system. But interestingly, public archaeology as a notion, as a methodological tool, appears in the United States. The first book was published in 1972 by Charles McGimsey. Public Archaeology was the title of this book. And it was the first work, it was the first book which presented this problem that archaeologists before the Second World War were not really communicating with the authorities and with the greater public. But it was the two big issues: communication, dialogue with the authorities and with the greater public. Because without a dialogue, without presenting our work to the greater public and the authorities, archaeology will have a very bad future. So Charles McGimsey was concerned about the existence and the very future, the fate of archaeology. And his solution was, the solution proposed by him was to communicate our results, to have a dialogue, an intense, a living relationship with the greater public. We need a respectful, conscious public and society who understand actually what we are doing. So that was the major issue, to destroy all the stereotypes regarding archaeology and to create a living academic dialogue with the greater public. The same phenomena we can see in the programmatic article of Hester Davis, The Crisis in American Archaeology. Is the same issues we find in his article regarding the future of archaeology, the financial issues they have, the legal issues, the legal protection of archaeological work in the United States, and so on. So this was the first steps, which already changed also the legal aspect and the legal world of archaeology in the United States. Of course, there were some symbolic moments in the history of archaeology in the 20th century, especially after the UNESCO was founded. One of the most successful projects of the UNESCO was the translocation of the Abu Simbel temple in Egypt. Everybody knows these famous pictures, videos. There were many, many teams around the world participating in this massive project. And obviously it was sensational, visually very captivant, obviously. So therefore this project was the somehow the starting point of the UNESCO movement, and to create a consciousness of world heritage, that we have the materiality of the past. The past is ours, is a common heritage. It's not only Egyptian heritage, it's not only American heritage, Slovenian, Hungarian heritage, it's world heritage. It's part of the Homo sapiens as a species. What created in the past, it's a common heritage. So it was a very important moment, and of course all the legal changes in the 1960s and 70s, like the UNESCO Carta and also the Venezia Carta in 1964. These were important steps in changing the legal frame of archaeology. Today, public archaeology in the UK and in the United States has now a 50 years long history. So there is it's already a sub-discipline in archaeology. There are journals, special journals are focusing on public archaeology. There is even a journal, Public Archaeology. There are many important books on this. And there are many museums or institutions who are now leading this field. For example, the Museum of London Archaeology, the MOLA, of course, is one of the, let's say, leading institutions of this movement. And the UCL in London, University College London, also take a very important part of this new discipline. Gabriel Moszenska, you can see here, is also a very important figure of public archaeology. His book, Key Concept in Public Archaeology, is again, it's a very good manual. It's a guide for every archaeologist, museologist, and the greater public, of course. It's free. You can download. You can find on internet. It's free for everyone, and it's a very good introduction to what we call as public archaeology today. So in the West, in the UK, United States, also in Germany now, public archaeology is a reality for at least 40, 50 years. Well, obviously in Romania, things are a bit different. You can see here also this typology of actions. How can we communicate with the greater public? By Gabriel Moszenska, there are many ways, many methods to communicate the archaeological results and to create a consciousness of archaeological heritage. And I will present each of these categories for Romania in the following. So you will see these categories of Moszenska in Romania. How can we manifest, or how can we communicate the materiality of the past? So coming to Romania now, very shortly, at the moment, at this moment, Romania has officially 18,000 archaeological sites. That is, you can find in a national database of archaeological sites in Romania, which is ran.cimec.ro, or it's also, this map is coming from the map.cimec.ro. It's a national database which was, of course, has many negative aspects too, but at least we have something like that. So you can see that most of the archaeological sites are in green, but it depends on which region. At least in Transylvania, most of them are green, which means that they were attested archaeologically and the systematic excavations. The red points are rescue excavations. So from 18,000 archaeological sites in Romania, in the 1970s, in the communist period, Romania, of course, signed all the international treaties, the UNESCO treaty, the Venezia treaty. But after 1990, for more than 10 years, from 1990 to 2001, Romania didn't have an archaeological legislation, so there were no legal protection of this archaeological heritage. And that was a big problem because most of the archaeological sites were heavily looted. There were metal detectorists working everywhere, destroying the archaeological sites. The most famous case was, of course, the gold bracelets of the Dacian bracelets, 24 gold objects, beautifully elaborated golden jewelry found in the Dacian capital in the mountains in the 1990s. They were, of course, sold for the black market in Switzerland, later to New York. So it was one of the big tragedies of the 1990s after the communist regime, after the fall of the communist regime, that Romania didn't have for more than 10 years a legal protection of the archaeological sites. It was this period of administrative and legal chaos what was in Romania in the 1990s. So it was one of the big issues. The changes occurs in the when this heavy looting of the golden bracelets were found out. So they realized that a massive amount of archaeological material was looted, was stolen from the country. So they need to change the legislation rapidly. And of course, it was one of the criteria of the European Union's adhesion to the European Union. So these international pressure basically helped the Romanian legislation after 2000. And therefore, they introduced some of the archaeological sites in the UNESCO list. Romania has now 6 UNESCO heritage sites. Most of them are also archaeological sites. Of course, they can be historical and archaeological together. There are many categories there. It's not overlapping. I mean, they are overlapping sometimes. From these 6 UNESCO World Heritage Sites, the most famous ones, of course, are the Dacian fortresses from the late Iron Age period. You can see here already from last week, we were speaking about this late Iron Age sanctuary from Saviseget to Zaregia. There are at least 4 others are in the World Heritage Sites. So there's not only one, but there are many in the same area with the Hartseg Mountains. There was also the Saxon fortified villages. A part Transylvania has more than 250 fortified medieval villages. Only 7 of them, unfortunately, are introduced in the UNESCO heritage sites. And Sighișoara, Scheisburg, again, it's a Saxon, beautiful Saxon city, perfectly preserved from medieval times in a historical center, is part of the UNESCO World Heritage Site. So this happens in the 1990s, end of the 1990s, when these medieval and late Iron Age archaeological sites were introduced in the UNESCO list. At least they have now a legal protection. But unfortunately, not all of these sites had archaeological investigation. You can, if you go on the UNESCO, if you go in the UNESCO page, you can see that on the web page, many of these sites have a very bad nomination dossier. Their papers and their nomination is extremely heterogeneous. So they didn't present the archaeological excavations. There were few archaeological excavations in these sites. In the 1990s, basically they nominated these sites as in a hurry. So it was just made to protect the sites. There were very few archaeological investigations. So one of the problems of these UNESCO sites is that we don't have modern contemporary excavations. We don't have a detailed archaeological monography on these sites. And after it was nominated and they are protected by international law, you can see also here that some of the sites are still covered by flora and by the nature. It's hard to accessible for tourism, so it's not really presented. They're not really tourism for long-term cultural heritage. And it's from how to present these sites and also to protect. Here, Romania have not only, but most of the countries have big issues to resolve this issue, the problem of sustainability and presenting the archaeological sites. A problematic case is Roșia Montana, the Roman mines from Roșia Montana, the ancient Alburnus Major. It's the only subterranean gold mines of the Roman Empire, which more than 17 kilometers of galleries underground. It was well in the 18th century when the Habsburg Empire rediscovered these mines, and they used as modern mines too. Unique. We have, of course, Roman mines in Hispania, Las Medulas. We have Roman mines in Serbia, in Murcia Superior, but these are the only extensive subterranean Roman mines. So these are the Spanish gold mines, for example, are above the ground. So they are terrestrial mining, but underground mining was rare and of course extremely dangerous in Roman times too. So these gold mines are exceptional World Heritage. It was nominated as a UNESCO World Heritage Site, but unfortunately, because of course they still have a massive amount of gold there, around 170 tons of gold. It is a lot of money there. So unfortunately, in the 1990s, this was bought by a Canadian international company, the Roșia Montana Gold Corporation. They they financed the archaeological excavations. They financed also the restoration of some of the buildings from Roșia Montana, this beautiful medieval and Habsburgic town. But the condition was that after the rescue excavation, the whole mountain will be exploded. It will be destroyed. This was the moment in 2012 and 2013 when the social civic movement began to save Roșia Montana. There were almost every week massive protests in every city in Romania, in Bucharest, Cluj, the major university cities, especially students were marching to save Roșia Montana. It was the first time in the history of Romania when an archaeological site and the natural landscape became a part of a civic movement. So protecting this extremely important archaeological site was an interesting. It became a political issue. Of course, it was heavily discussed in politics. The governments were discussing. Governments, for sometimes one of the governments even fall. So the government was collapsed after one of these protests. For the protests which began in 2013. They realized in 2018, no 16. Sorry, in 2016 they finished a nominalization dossier. They sent it to the UNESCO, but unfortunately, in 2018, the Romanian government decided to retrieve the dossier. Political networking. So that was still just on the nomination list. It's not yet UNESCO World Heritage Site, and it's still heavily discussed and a problematic case study. But it was the first time when archaeology became a public issue and the public entered in the public consciousness. Romania has also so-called national archaeological sites, which has a national importance, mostly Greek and Roman cities from Transylvania, from Dobruja in the bank of the Black Sea. There are Greek cities, Histria, Tomis, Kalatis, Greek colonies founded in the 7th, 6th century BC. There are also some prehistoric sites from the Vinca culture, 5,000, 6,000 years old archaeological sites, and also the famous Kukuteny prehistoric Neolithic site. So these are the national archaeological sites, most of them restored in situ in the 1960s, 70s, some of them in the 1990s with very bad and heavy modification of the archaeological heritage. You can see here in Alba Iulia, for example, the Roman fort, the wall of the Roman fort are perfectly preserved, but in the 1990s, early 2000s, they introduced this terrible opus quadratum imitation, which affects now, heavily affecting the original structures. So from the categories of Moshenska, what we have? Well, first of all, Moshenska is speaking about the so-called public archaeology in academic world. So how archaeologists realize, first of all, the importance of the dialogue. But there are very few articles. There are really just 2 or 3 studies in Romania which are focusing now on public archaeology as a theoretical model. So we still need to discuss this among us, archaeologists, museologists, historians. What is public archaeology? What are the major problems in Romania about archaeology? So it's still an open and very new field. So after 2014, after the 2013, after the Roșia Montana movement, we have this topic in our field. Sorin Nemeti and others he published a so-called manifesto for the Romanian public archaeology. It sounds extremely programmatic, but the article itself is not so programmatic as it sounds. But indeed, it was an important starting point in 2017 when he published this study. There are many other books about the protection of archaeological heritage, the archaeological heritage management, the history of archaeology. So there are many books in Romania now focusing on this dialogue and the future of archaeology. What will be the future of Romanian archaeology, and how can we present the archaeological heritage for the greater public? Yeah, there are many projects also, some of them of course already finished, but some projects are focusing on this idea of archaeological heritage for the greater public. Another issue is what Moshenska called as community archaeology. Community archaeology means when an archaeologist, a specialist, are living together, working together, forms a community with the greater public. So it's a working together with a greater public, and that of course means archaeological schools, open schools for the greater public. So you are excavating, you are opening an archaeological site just as a summer school or just to present your work for the greater public. It was very popular in the communist period, in the 70s, 80s. They had a lot of archaeological schools for students, for pupils, in high schools even. Nowadays, it's a renaissance of this movement. They re-begin to open up some archaeological sites to present for the students mostly, but also for pupils or other lay people who are not in the field. There were a project in Bonsida in a late 18th century palace. It's a classicist Baroque palace, and they opened up as you can see, a very small trench just to present for the students and for the tourists how an archaeologist works. And they, after a short 1-week training, they were able to work, obviously, in the supervision of many archaeologists. They have also a lot of festivals when archaeologists are presenting the material heritage. You can see archaeologists and museologists in Roman or medieval costumes, vestimentation, cooking Roman food, writing Roman wax tablets, basically what we call as experimental archaeology, but together with the greater public. So lay people, visitors, tourists can visit these festivals, and they are cooking together Roman foods. They are reconstructing Roman tents. They can use a Roman helmet and so on. So these events, what we call as community archaeology, when you can touch the objects, when you can see how a Roman or other types of objects are made, so you can see the whole process of the object together. That has a very long-term effect and a very positive effect on the greater public. Not only for children, obviously for children, this is the most successful projects, but also for the others, for older people. Community archaeology is one of the most successful way to create a dialogue. Another type of action in the typology of Moshenska is archaeology by the public. This is a very risky way. In Romania, it's very popular. What we are talking about here is the so-called reenactment groups. Reenactment, of course, they to present a historical period, usually Roman period in Romania. Is very popular to have a lot of Roman legionary military groups, but also some Dacian groups, for example, from late Iron Age Dacian kingdom and Dacian soldiers. Both of these stories are built up in the national ethnogenesis myth. So they are very popular for the greater public. The problem is with this method, presenting archaeology to the public, special. So archaeologists are not participating in this. These reenactment groups sometimes are not well prepared. They are presenting false objects. They are presenting partially true information. So it is problematic to have a control. There is no academic control of these events. But obviously they have a big success for the greater public. As you can see, these gladiator fights obviously are very, very attractive for the students, for the children, for everybody. But it's risky because these reenactment groups are not controlled. They don't have a specialist in the background. So, and obviously it depends on the formation of these groups. Sometimes they are really very well prepared. They know the bibliography. They are extremely read people. So they read, they know the archaeological material. But there are some cases when it's not really authentic. Another type mode or way to present archaeological heritage, of course, is in the typology of Moshenska, is the so-called public sector archaeology. So that means national projects large projects or multi-annual projects when the state or the local authorities are financing archaeological projects. The biggest and the only one in Romania now is the Limes project. Romania is now preparing, together with Bulgaria and Serbia, the nominalization of the Limes, the Roman frontiers and its archaeological sites. It's a 5 years long international collaboration, partially with European money, partially with local money. So the national government, Romania, also gave a lot of money for this project. And it's a very successful project because the team, you can see here, they are the leaders of this project, the Romanian part. So the archaeologists are, they have also a lot of actions for the greater public. They organize beautiful expositions, for example. They have a new journal, Romanian Limes journal, which is mostly for the greater public. So it's beautiful pictures, beautiful 3D models of Roman forts and fortresses, and it's really visually very active and kept very attractive for the greater public. So these projects financed by the government should be, of course, a very good solution for archaeological heritage, public archaeology, but it's extremely rare to find. So this was basically the first national project financed by Romanian government in the last 20 years. But that's not a good statistics. Another way or methodology to present is, of course, archaeological education or modern museology, museum pedagogy. Well, of course, as you can see in many museums in Europe and also in the United States, these technological methods, what we call as 3D models, visual tours in museums. So everything what means the IT sector entering museology, and the collaboration between IT sector and museology will have the future and will change our perspective on museology. It's very popular now in Romania too. Some of the museums already have this method. You can have, I don't know what kind of glasses, and you can touch and you can move and you can walk in ancient spaces. Some of the archaeological finds, the original archaeological finds, are digitized, like photo 3D objects. Basically, the same objects is digitized virtually, and you can just play with the archaeological objects. It's very popular now. It's a booming field, of course, in Romania too. We can discuss, of course, the limits of this methodology, but now it seems to be a trend in Romania. Shortly about the museums in Romania, there are 800 museums in Romania. 600 of these museums have a certain amount of archaeological material. So a big part of museums in Romania are actually archaeological museums or historical archaeological. Of course, sometimes it's mixed. Most of the national museums are also archaeological museums. There are two categories of museums: local museums controlled and financed by the local county government, not government, like the county budget, and the national museums, which are financed directly from the Ministry of Culture. The problem with the national museums in the last 30 years, especially after the fall of the communism, that they are closed, they are under restoration, they are under renovation. It's an administrative political issue here. It's a massive problem of the of the Ministry of Culture, which in the last 30 years, Romania have almost 40 ministries of culture. So some of them were staying for like 5 months. And that's impossible to have long-term projects. It's impossible to have continuity in museum pedagogy, in museology. And that is the biggest problems now in the Romanian museology is the continuity and long-term projects. That's, for example, if you compare the history of the national museums in Serbia, in Bulgaria, in Hungary, for example, the National Museum in Budapest, in Belgrade, in Sofia, and compare to National Museum in Bucharest. The National Museum in Bucharest is a hybrid museum. It doesn't exist before, of course, 1918. I mean, Romania itself is formed after the First World War in the contemporary limits of today. And the museum was trying to collect its material, because obviously they tried to collect archaeological material from every part of the recently formed Romania. So they took the archaeological material from Transylvania, from Dobruja, from Iași, from Moldova. They collected the archaeological material in one place. And in the 1990s, this museum was collapsed. Basically, the museum now is not functioning. It has really big problems, big issues to redefine itself, to find a way how to present this very mixed history with four historical regions with totally different historical background, how to present this extremely heterogeneous history in one national museum. They didn't find a way yet, and it's a big problem. There are also many IT companies collaborating with Romanian archaeologists now. They reconstructed the Dacian capital of Staroseghetuza Regia in a 3D model, but it's still not enough for tourism. For example, we need more applications, phone applications, for example. We need more practical methods to present this archaeological heritage for the greater public. The most successful exposition, archaeological pedagogical exposition, was in 2014 and 2018. It's almost 3 or 4 years. It was an itinerary exposition. They visited almost every big city in Romania. They presented the gold and silver treasures of Romania. So basically every big treasure, big hoard discovered from the Bronze Age till the early Middle Ages. Millions of euro. Of course, the value is it's unestimable. It's how you say this, assurance. The assurance of the exposition was 400 million euro, but it's just a symbolic number. It was the first time when all of the treasures were presented for the greater public in a very, very beautiful way. They made really interactive posters, videos, new ways of exposition. So it was really a groundbreaking moment in Romanian museology, because before that, every museal exposition looked like in the 1970s. So it was extremely overdated, and it was extremely outdated way of museological expositions. This was the first moment when they tried to present this material in a very European, modern aspect. So that was an important moment. But of course, it was just one project. They need now, again, to continue somehow with similar projects. And obviously, it was an extremely popular exposition with hundreds of thousands of visitors. So it was a sensation that, and it obviously proved that archaeology is cool. Archaeology is attractive. Archaeology is interesting for the 21st century. I mean, it was the most obvious way to show for the politicians, for our local authorities, that if you have a beautiful exposition, if you have, of course, fascinating archaeological materials, if you present the story of an object, then you will have a big success. And that was, I think, it was one of the positive parts of this project, that it showed for the greater public, for the critics, for the investors, for the politicians, that you can make money also with archaeology. There are many public presentations nowadays in pubs, in restaurants, in student places, in universities, of course before COVID, obviously, but it was a big success to present, especially in urban archaeological projects, urban excavations, to present for the greater public. This is, for example, a case study from Cluj in 2017, when they found, I mean, it has a very interesting story, but I don't have time now to explain. They found a medieval necropolis, medieval cemetery, and some medieval structures. So they presented for the local people, because the local people obviously had some strange ideas about robbing the tombs, destroying the city, and so on. So the archaeologists presented the archaeological material, what they found, and it was a big success. It was a good example how you can communicate archaeological results together with the press. The press was very communicative, very collaborative. The local newspapers, the local televisions, they were very collaborative, and it was the first moment when an urban archaeological excavation was news in the news. It was everywhere. So it was a great propaganda, if you want, for the archaeology, and I think it's a good way to do in the future. There are also what Moshenska called open archaeology, presenting archaeological sites for the greater public. But in this case, in contrast with the community archaeology, in this case, on open archaeology, the public is a passive presence. So they are not excavating, they are not participating in excavation, but they just watching the works of archaeology. Basically, this is how it begins in London in the Walbrook site. So it was open archaeology, working in front of a public. And they organize many open days, of course, in different archaeological sites. In Cluj in 2017, the same excavation I was talking about before, they had even guides, tourist guides for the archaeological tours in 3 languages, in Hungarian, Romanian, and in English. So it was something very new, something very unusual in that period. And of course, we have the so-called popular archaeology, popularizing archaeology by books, by films, by journals, by Facebook pages, by blogs, by podcasts, and 1,000 other ways. There are many Facebook pages now. In Romanian archaeological sites have their own Facebook page. They publish a lot of archaeological books and popularizing material. So it's a booming field. But I said, in the UK, it has at least 50 years long history. In Romania, it has just, let's say, 5-10 years in the best case. And in conclusion, so Basically, there's the public archaeology was a necessity. It was necessary to have a dialogue with the greater public, especially in the post-war era, and it, of course, in the West, it has now a long history, 50 years long history. Here in Romania, we have, and only in the last 7-8 years after the Roșia Montana movement. But it's a booming field. I'm positive, I'm optimistic in this way that hopefully in the future we will have even more engagement from the politics, from the investors, from the private sector. The private sector need also to collaborate with archaeologists. And this is the only way in the future for archaeology, I think, if we unite public sector, political sector, and the academic sector. Thank you very much for your attention. I hope you heard me.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you so much. It was really so interesting because I'm thinking all the time the situation in Slovenia, because now it's quite, I think so, 10 years that we have also some kind of study of public archaeology on our university curriculum, and it's I'm very I'm very impressed by interest of young people, because I'm very positive about that. I think that the young population, this generation, it's really very open to the necessity of knowledge, how important it is to communicate the results, the knowledge of archaeology about the past in the modern society. And it is also very, very important that we all know that how much political interest is in our archaeological knowledge and research also. There are the past and the interpretation of past is always political burdened, and if you know that, it's much easier. Thank you so much to tell your story, because even in Slovenia we have a lot of problems. I think that only really good interpretation, it's still problematic, and especially this involving of public, of community, they would be active in research and interpretation. I think it's still not enough. It's still not adequate, if you say. Probably in Slovenia, it's also characteristic that we are a little bit more sophisticated, even in museum communication. You know, it's everything. It's very academic, and to include public, it's quite a task. You know, you have to respect all this knowledge of public archaeology. You mentioned Moshenka, which is really important. If we go through, there are so many, you know, festivals, let's say forums of communicating and involving public in the doing. But you know, that we are really quite, let's say, quite good in open archaeology. There is a wonderful festival in Novo Mesto. I hope you will come, you will visit Novo Mesto. They have a huge festival in June, and even about the Situla, and you know Situla because they were found how many 7 Situlas in Novo Mesto, and even Novo Mesto itself, it's called now the town of Situlas. Yeah, and they have a very good pedagogical programs in museums. There are many programs in museums, but probably we still don't are not aware enough how important it is to work together.
Yes, yeah, that's. I mean, I see that it's a booming field. I was very happy to see similar projects in Bulgaria, in Serbia, in Hungary. So it's, and this what we call Central East Europe is also going now in a good way. So and it's inevitable. That's the future. But otherwise, I mean, I still have some colleagues. I still have some archaeologists who are very distant from. No, we need to focus on archaeology and academic work, but they don't understand that if we're not communicating our results, archaeology will not have a future. That's the very sad truth. I mean, I don't see other solutions then, and somehow it's also our responsibility to create a responsible society, because people have no idea. I mean, I see the huge gaps in their mentality. They have no idea what is an archaeological site, what is an inscription. It's not just a stone with some letters on it. It has a story. If we don't teach them, they are not. They won't learn it from internet. Is a you know well, it's a strange place. So you can find many strange things there. So.
Yeah, but I think it's really so important that we are aware that interpretation, it's a huge complicated knowledge. You have to learn it. And the second thing, that even public archaeology is such a huge and large field. It's a lot of knowledges you cannot do alone. It's very interdisciplinary. It's a teamwork. It's a question of our responsibility. It's not, may I do or not? Oh, probably it's easier. No, it's your responsibility in today's society. And then even we have to be aware about the needs of the public, like then the needs about identity. It's a question about this. It's today, you know, everything. It's we talk about even the last lecture. It's globalization. And being 2 millions, only 2 millions community of Slovenia, can you imagine what a responsibility is, not only from historians, from archaeologists, from everyone, because we have to keep together because of our heritage. And archaeology is a big part of our past. It's covered by archaeological knowledge, you know, and we have to link together, or first of all, not to forget our identity, not to neglect and lose it, or to be nationalistic. This is probably your problem. Excuse me. Yeah. And our is to be so international, so globalized, you know. Even our universities are thinking about, okay, let's go on English, Slovenian, it's not important. No, it's part of our past, of our identity, of our history. And archaeologists, we still have a lot of that knowledge.
Yes, I mean, it's what I mentioned slightly, that in these reenactment groups, of course, presenting the archaeological heritage is transformed into a national, sometimes even extreme right movement.
Yeah.
And that's a huge risk to.
Yeah.
This is why from that 7 or 9 categories of Moshenska, for me, the reenactment groups are the most, I would say, not dangerous, but the most problematic ones. And of course, I would go more on the community archaeology, on museology, modern museology education. Popular archaeology books, films. I mean, I just saw yesterday on Netflix the dig. It's a wonderful way. I mean, of course, the British are the etalon. They are the top of how to present archaeology in a fascinating way. And obviously they have a 50 years tradition in this. I mean, it's hard to, and of course the governmental money. I mean, that is very important, that they have a lot of money from the public sector and the private too. But yes, that would be the solution, and I hope we can evolve in this sense.
Yeah, okay, I'm opening the session to everyone and discussion. Kaya here has something to say, and please, also colleagues from Nova Mesta, Laura is here, Masha is here. Masha is visiting in this year Washington with a little exhibition and the wonderful interpretation from Roman archaeology in some Istrian site. And
yes, we will still see, Verena, because we didn't have enough money for this. So we are still in talks with our director how we will manage to do this.
Okay.
This is the other problem of archaeology and museum interpretation. We have great ideas. We really want to spread, to really communicate and so on, but then you just get cut from your fundings. Of course, now we have some ideas how we can communicate with the Society of the Slovenians in Washington and so on, but this is really heavy job to do, and so yeah. It's still we are still well in talks, to say.
Of course, that's a common issue in this area everywhere. I mean, I was participating on some workshops with Michael Sommer and the Limes Commission from Germany. Even Germany have issues. Obviously, the quantity of archaeological sites there is much bigger, but even they have problems sometimes with the local authorities, the governments, to negotiate for, and we don't need, this is a bit tragic, because we don't really need like millions of euros. We need some thousands of euros, and it's still a big problem for some governments. And I mean, and I think it's they have the money. I mean, that we let's just be sure. I mean, instead of buying 20 F-14 or whatever military airplanes, like Romania is investing 30 billion euro in war and this bullshit. I'm sorry, but I'm very against this military investments. I mean, from that incredible amount of money, 100,000 or 1 million euro for public archaeology or culture generally, it's nothing. It's really absolutely nothing. And I think it really depends on the persons and on the statesmen and on the how we negotiate and how they understand what is archaeology. Because for many politicians, archaeology is something which stops investments. Archaeology is something which is an obstacle for the progress.
Yes,
they have this madness in their head, and we need to somehow to change them, to see that archaeology can be also extremely profitable.
Yes, we have, I'm sorry I interrupted you. We have a really good example in Croatia. just yesterday I saw one lecture about in an archaeological museum in Istria, and they have this arena, Roman arena. They are managing this Roman arena, and they have also a really big museum. I think there are 50 people employed there. So, and they really have a lot of money, and they really can do a research. They have a beautiful publication, beautiful exhibition. They really can prosper. So you can see what can we do if we have enough fundings to thrive and to prosper, and how much you can give back to the public, to the community, to the state. So it's a really good example.
Yeah, but I would like to remark that Professor Tomislav Šole from Zagreb, he's museologist, he's very well known in the world. He was very important member of ICOM and so on. And he's always saying like something like that. You have to know that your success, even in money, financial success, is always independent of your visibility and social importance. That was something that was told for museums, but it's the same for us. Always thinking about our projects, we have to be interpretative. We have to be together in, like I told you, we have to be interdisciplinary, and we have to put together more than just like museums. It had to be also the faculty, or let's say, I don't know which one, institution, but it's so important, you know, it's so important. And here is, because sometimes we just don't know how to do that, you know. We are only archaeologists, but if we learn, we take the theory from the field of museology, that is a lot, and I think this is the right methodology.
Yeah, and maybe I'm aware that many of the colleagues from smaller museums in the countryside, they really would need 1 or 2 weeks or just a weekend workshop or a training or something, because well, obviously they have the museology trainings, and they are meeting, but maybe they don't have this new approach of public archaeology. I mean, museology they are discussing sometimes about this marketing, museal marketing. It's a different branch, but maybe it would be nice to disseminate the dissemination for the colleagues. It's not happening yet. So everybody's his own. So if you read your own, then it's okay. If you're not, you are dependent on that 1 or 2 colleagues in the museum who is responsible for the marketing, but that's not enough.
Yeah, that's not enough. Even if I see today, we are mostly only archaeologists. And excuse me, in our group, it's okay. But you know, the question of archaeology, the question of museum knowledge, this is a question of our heritage, is question of our nationality, of our identity, of our past, and especially of our future. And that is so important. That is that I try always to tell everyone, even in our classes of public archaeology. And I think the young people, they really understand that. The only ones that this is our future. The question of our future. Yeah, but please, Kaya is waiting here, excuse me.
Well, I have several remarks, or couple, like half questions. So the first one would be, maybe if you go back to Bloomberg Mithraeum. I think it's a really nice case of it. They opened it just after I left UK, so it's still a popular thing because I couldn't book the entry at all.
Yes.
I've been back like 4 or 5 times, and it's not sold out because tickets are for free. You just need to register because the groups are like limited, but it's so popular that you cannot believe it. It's overbooked always for like 3 weeks in advance. As soon as the slots open, they're gone. So I would say it was really popular when it was excavated. And I think they did a quite good job with presenting this as well, because they had like this advertisement video before the renovations were done. And I think the most important part of it was that people who witnessed the original excavations were asked to come and speak at this video, and now they're like in their 60s, 70s, and they were explaining how they've seen the Roman stuff for the first time, how they were like all in awe of it, and how they now know why this is their heritage. It's not so much of giving back to people, it's including them and making them part of the story. Because I would say that everyone who witnessed the first excavations of Mithraeum now, you know, understand that this is their past as well. It's not a thing that's in the middle of the city center, but it's important part of heritage, because I would say Roman stuff in UK, it's important, but it's in their, like, how they're taught history. It's not the biggest part at all. They do Tudors for like ages, and Roman stuff is just brushed away. But now I think there is huge recognition of the history and the past in Roman period as well because of it, because they made people part of the project, and it was really emphasized. And the same goes for reenactment groups, I would say, in States and in Britain. A lot of reenactment comes from archaeologists. They're part of it. I know that in States they organize not classes but fairs of craftspeople who come and archaeologists who come, and they exchange knowledge as well, because if I found a tool that I don't know how to use, who would you ask? So you have this merger of knowledge from different parts as well. And I would say in Slovenia we have, this is due to my knowledge, I might be wrong as well, we have the medieval reenactment is the most accurate, and I have a couple of friends who are doing it. They always say that they lack resources either in how things were made or where to get them or how to do it. So, you know, this is another opportunity to reach out and get connected. And I think reenactment might be a good thing, because if you know, internet is a big place, but a lot of reenactors worldwide, especially specializing in 1800s and later, the community is huge. And especially for clothing, there is insane amount of information, and they're really accurate. They do their research, they document their research. You have YouTube videos with lists of bibliography and resources, and I think we need more of this.
Yes,
so,
I know also that these military traditions from the medieval ages till the Second World War, it is have amazing knowledge. Really, like I cannot even follow how they know every single details of the arms of the military objects, for example, or the vestments. So that obviously they are well prepared persons there. But in Roman times, in Dacian times, in early medieval times, at least in Romania, I can speak only about these groups. Some of them, not all of them, but some of them have really huge issues and problems, probably because of, you mentioned, the financial limits, the lack of collaboration. Some archaeologists don't want to help them. So there are many problems here, but we should work on this. That's.
I would say that it's much better to think about how bad is something, or how authentic, and so it's much better would be to think about how to collaborate. Because all these festivals at the beginning, you know, they are opportunity that people can be involved, could be part of the team. Even you can always take some of them to museum. They can touch original materials. You know, there is a lot of things that you cannot destroy. tons of archaeological ceramic that nobody is working on sometimes, let's say, or they are just there. The people are very happy to touch and they can learn so much. And this is the beginning. We have to change in our brains, you know, that we are important for them and they are even more important for us. And we can learn not only them from us, but also we from them, because their interpretation could be wrong, but it is one aspect that we have to think about.
I mean, the public has always some amazing questions.
Yeah.
Sometimes we never ever thought, or we are so much focusing on the details, on some extremely small details like typology of objects. One letter in an inscription we can speak an hour, but then comes an outsider with a fascinating question. Then you see totally different an object, or in much broader context. So of course it's useful, and also interdisciplinarity. This is why it's extremely useful to collaborate with a sociologist and anthropologist, because they have very interesting questions on objects and materiality in generally. So
yeah, because they're looking from the life to the science, and so much broader, you know. Yeah, but asking even other people, because colleague from Novo Mesto is today without voice, and she is sorry. She is very sorry. She can't discuss with us, but Novo Mesto, they are really very good in it. Even probably because they are in vicinity of Croatian border, and just on the other side of the border, the Croatian colleagues, archaeologists, they are every year preparing a huge festival about the food in the prehistoric time, and it's really a public archaeology, because they are coming the whole community together and so on, and they're a very good collaboration is indeed. So it depends. It depends not only from us, but also from community, from everything. So, but we have to do our part. Yeah. Okay. Is anyone else who would? Yeah, please. Denis Randic. You. Is he still here? Yeah, Denis, say something. How was your public archaeology in Rome?
Yeah, I wasn't I wasn't doing a lot of public archaeology, but I saw some projects that they had in Rome. The Musei in Comune, so of the municipality of Rome, the museums of the municipality of Rome, and the most impressive event that I was at, it was so-called Musica in Musei, so the music in museums. That was so the concerts and the visits to museums in one part. So in the evening, the event was from 8 in the evening till 1 in the night. So it was really
wow.
And there was several concerts in all the museums, and not only classic, but it was classical music, folk music, it was pop music, it was electronical music, it was all musics. And so you paid only €1 and you could visit the concerts and also all the exhibitions in museums. So you could walk through museums and also listen to live performing music. So, and it was really full of people. It was really full. It was really, I didn't imagine that so much people will come to this event, but it was really good. Also, there were a lot of posters all around the city, so it was really the event was really good published. So it was all the people in the city really know. In metro stations, everywhere there were posters that this event is. So I think that it's really important that I think a lot of times there are really good events that are organized by museums or festivals, events, but the publicity is sometimes, I don't know, sometimes the people don't know that there are many good things that are organized. No? Yes, we announced from on Facebook, on social medias, but sometimes also the posters on I don't know, bus stops, or yes, can do a lot of good publicity. No? So this I think it's really to think about that. Not only make good events, but also to publicity them.
Yeah, because these are Musei Capitolini. You can imagine how many visitors they have, how important they are for community and so on. But still, they are working very hard with community, with population, and probably with music, they will come. This part of public that would be probably never ever visit a museum. And it was a beautiful event. Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, but can you imagine some concert on archaeological site? And why not? I'm just asking. Of course, not with a big concert piano, but still,
we have it in Pula.
Yeah, of course, because it is arena. It's important. But we have a lot of places that you can perform a little group, or let's say how important is that you can enter to the museum at 9, 11, 12 o'clock. And why not? Yeah, and to museums, in reality, they are key to understand this and to the past, and also to communication with the past, and also with all other communities like researchers, like archaeologists, and so on.
Yeah, and I would say, as Denis said, about publishing and announcing events. The problem, I think, it's now that we have such a flood of information. Internet is a thing, everyone can access anything, and I think more now than ever, museums and institutions dealing with such events would need a coherent PR service.
Excuse me, I have to intervene. Yeah. You have to have a clear idea. What would you like to do to that? Because this is a message, and you have to reach your public, and if you know what are you doing, yeah, then you need to probably not, even the usual public relation would be good, but you have to have idea. Yeah, excuse me. Oh, please, Szabó. Masha, yeah.
Yeah, you have to have a strategy. This is the key.
Yeah,
we had in these days we had a really good workshop with Caroline from USA. She was lecturing about digital approach in museums, and we were taught to do. It was really a workshop. We were taught to do the strategy. Everyone for every of participants. So, and the key is really strategy, and this must be done as a whole. Everybody in museum, and of course the main the main character is, of course, a director who must have also the strategy of the museum. So this must be done together, you know. It's something that is the same body. So yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Okay. Nobody else?
I would like to say that I really like IT work that was represented because it can be used in so many ways.
Katja?
Yeah?
Yeah, please say something about you. Introduce yourself. She's our colleague, our student.
Oh, I'm sorry.
A very nice
Student.
Show yourself, I know. Ah!
I would like to say I really liked the IT work because I think it can be represented in so many ways. And I know many people that fell in love with heritage by playing computer games and things like that. It's an amazing way to approach young people.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and I mean, I probably you still those who participate in conferences nowadays. On almost every conference, there's a section on digital humanities. Now it's a booming field, and I remember the Limes Congress also had I think a separate workshop or a section on how the Limes and the archaeological heritage of the Limes can be presented for the greater public by modern tools, especially phone applications. So like, I never forget that in Rome, for example, I'm not sure if it still exists, this application, but you can stand in front of the Forum of Trajan, just watching your phone, and basically the buildings are reconstructed in 3D in front of you. It's like Pokemon Go, but you see the buildings raising from the ground. It's incredible. And for the young people, this is some really attractive. Not only for, I mean, I was staying there for hours in Rome to see all these buildings in 3D, and of course this is the real future. Now, and I think there are many good examples, at least in Romania, in Cluj, especially Cluj, which have 20% of the young population are working in IT now. That means at least 10,000 people working in IT sector now. And there are many small private, I mean, sometimes they have bigger budget than a big museum, of course, but they are these small companies. They are very collaborative. So if you have a good project, then you can go for an IT company, and maybe you can reach a sponsorship for an exhibition, for a collaboration. It's good for their own how you say marketing. So there are some examples already when these IT companies are entering museology, and there is a collaboration between museums and private companies. So I think that's the future, because it's a win-win, as also the colleague said, that you know what, at everybody's we need to find a common dialogue, a common ground between archaeology and the greater public. It should be a win-win process. So
okay, thank you. If there is, thank you, Katja, so much, and you're so good, you're great. Yeah, I'm very enthusiastic about this young population. They are really aware how important it is to work with community. And if there is no one else, I would conclude. First of all, thank you so much, dear colleague, dear Csaba. I hope that we will see you soon in Slovenia. And we will prepare probably some summer school on that or another way in Slovenia, and I would like to invite you because you are really so clear in your presentation about all these ideas, you know, because it's very important that as an archaeologist, you know also very well the museums. You know, because methodology and even museology, methodology is the same, yeah. And this is the first. Thank you so much being with us, sharing your knowledge. And the second thing that I would like to conclude, many people are afraid of IT because if people can see everything on internet, find everything on your phone, they will not return or even not enter to the museums. No, it's nothing like that, because the original authentic site has authenticity that will never be overpassed by not in that moment, probably even not in the future. There's authenticity, and this is so important.
Sorry.
Yeah, please.
Sorry for interruption. I just wanted to say, based on what Katja said about using the IT technology, in 2011, I'm not sure, Polish delegation in International Trade Festival in Shanghai made an extremely delightful IT representation of the heritage, and that presentation was very, and many people were astonished, even those who didn't know the history. So there is a huge potential in ID sector, and I know a couple of years ago, since I'm not Slovenian, I'm Bosnian, a couple of years ago in Sarajevo Zemaljski Muzej did the same thing with the local kids, and we managed to raise two generations who were extremely interested in archaeology and heritage, and even some of them managed in the process to sign up to enroll in archaeology. So IT sector has a huge impact and potential in our field, but also we need to find a solution how to not become too much dependent from the using of the modern technology.
Yes. I remember also the Pergamon Museum in Berlin. If you go there, I'm not sure they opened yet or not, but I think the Rotonda is already opened again, like this monumental 3D model of Pergamon, the ancient city. It's fascinating for everyone. I mean, even for students of archaeology, after you see all the objects, all the materiality of what we can find in the Pergamon Museum.
Seems that somebody likes this conversation so much.
So yes, I also saw this the popularity in Pergamon Museum or in Ferrara, in a very small museum, Ferrara in Italy. Yeah. I saw it's really beautiful presentations. They reconstructed the Etruscan period and the commercial relationship on the Po River, and then how Ferrara, I mean, in the ancient Ferrara and this region was in contact with Magna Graecia and the Greek colonies. Incredible. They presented everything in this, also visual, also auditive. You can find the water, how it's the sound of the water, the sound of the nature, and then the landscape. It was really incredibly amazing.
Yeah, I would.
That has, yes, sensorial archaeology. It's called. It is all of your sensors are sensualities are stimulated, not only visually but almost everything. It's
Denis, are you still with us, Denis?
Yes.
Dennis, how is the name of the new exhibition on Foro Romano? You know, that's part of the Trajan Forum that is that was interpreted by some private enterprise, by small group of archaeologists, and it is under the ground, and you enter on the very boring archaeological site just beside the Trajan Forum.
It's the Villa.
However, yeah, but it is interpreted by ITs. It's mean by lightness, by colors, by sounds, and at the end you can visit a very, very short present. No, it's not so short. Visual reconstruction of the Trojan column. It is so fantastic. It's so fantastic. Can you imagine being on the Roman Forum, visiting Musei Vaticani, I don't know, whatever in Rome, and then you enter on the small site, boring. Really very boring, but by good interpretation, you can really feel a Roman time. Do you agree, Dennis?
Yes, it's a really good presentation. So sometimes there are a lot of small museums that are really, you enter with no expectations, but then it's
explosion.
It's explosion. It's no need every time to be just that it's all IT, but a good interpretation, or just for example, as I said, I was living in Siena for 3 months. There was in the museum Santa Maria della Scala. It was a so good audio guide, really short for one room, less than a minute, but so good done, because sometimes the audio guides, they are boring and it's not so good and too long, but it was really well done, and so it's really good. It's really good, and so the time in museum was really short and really interesting. So not yes, in different ways you can achieve this.
Yes, I just want to add, I forget to mention this, that in Romania there is a huge amount of industrial heritage from the 19th century, from the even of course from the communist period, with huge buildings. There is a lot of space abandoned, not used, huge buildings in collapse, for example. And now it's a possibility, I would say, that many of our museums have space issues. They have not enough space to present archaeological material. And at one of my most amazing experience in Rome, I spent 6 months there also, and it was the Museum of Centrale Montemartini. That is a wonderful case how you can transform a industrial heritage site, basically these huge futuristic machines with these beautiful classical statues. That was something unbelievable. And Romania has this potential, but nobody really cares about industrial heritage here. It's a pity that we have these beautiful brick buildings, especially this red brick building, like you see in also in basic massive factories built by bricks. They are not really used for museum spaces. Or in London, again, the Tate Modern, for example. I mean, that is again an industrial building, or the famous building from the Pink Floyd,
Power station.
Yes, that will be transformed now, or it's already done. I don't know, in some cultural centers, or I don't know, but it's it's revitalized the building itself. So I mean, that could be a possibility that industrial heritage should be involved in archaeology, and
Yeah.
I think the Battersea has a bit of problems because it started out with plans to turn this huge factory into partly into heritage site and partly into social housing. And then, as it happens in London quite frequently, it's out of the sudden came like upper class apartments, and it was quite a big of controversy at the time. But I have another example, which is it might be good example or good warning what can happen if you don't use your heritage. Somebody else will. So for Slovenia, for example, Slovenia was put on gaming map, so to say, a couple of years back when some international players built a map based on Predavanje castle for Counter-Strike Polygon. And it's really one of the most popular maps for the game. And it didn't just stay there. A couple of streamers and gamers who have quite a big following on YouTube, on Discord, etc., came to Slovenia to visit the castle and do the comparison between this is in the game and it's true to its form, and this is completely out of shape and proportion. But we became famous because somebody thought, oh, this is a good location to include in a game. So it's another case of how heritage can be used.
I mean, Dubrovnik also have now this massive tourism after Game of Thrones, or obviously this also possible in video clips. Like I remember that I read somewhere an article when Beyonce or somebody who made this video clip in the Louvre. Obviously, it was controversial because she was dancing in front of statues, but there were like thousands of young people visiting the museum in the following weeks and months just because they saw this video clip. So I mean, okay, I was not really, I didn't like that clip, to be honest, but the effect was a positive museological effect. So
yeah, so this is more what I meant with the PR, because honestly, like I speak with younger generations and they're, oh, we saw this on TikTok. I don't even know how to use it. So I can't speak with them on their own platform.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. That is really so nice. And thank you to remind us how important is the holistic concept of heritage. That it's, if you don't include the archaeological part of heritage in the holistic view of heritage, then you lose the meaning of our doing. And I would like also at the end to remind everybody of us that IT is also very important, because we can get that way very important data about our public, about their knowledge or existing knowledge, or the questions, or about their attitudes. You know, it's really, this is a very good way. And at the end, I would like to mention that Europe has in the next few years a huge amount of financial support for the digitalization of the heritage. But don't go alone that way, but go in the team in an interdisciplinary way, and have in the mind that this is our responsibility, not the possibility. Okay, so if there is anybody else, so say in your best Romanian one sentence, please, and Hungarian too.
Mulțumesc. Thank you. Köszönöm.
Köszönöm szépen. Yeah.
I learn also in Slovenian at least how to say köszönöm. How you say in
Hvala.
hvala?
Yeah.
Hvala. Okay, it's, then I know this already. Yes.
Okay, thank you so much. It was nice, and I hope we see you soon in Slovenia.
I hope to. And you're also welcome, all of you, if you are visiting university or excavations or museums, just let me know and maybe we can meet somewhere. Yeah.
Okay, we promise to come. Tako, najlepša hvala vsem, bilo res prijetno srečanje in lep pozdrav, nasvidenje.
Nasvidenje.
Hvala vam.
Hvala, Dia.
Dio, dio.
Thank you. Bye. Addio, Eda. Bye, bye. Bye, Ana. Laura. Tina, ciao.
Ciao.
Katja, hvala, da si se oglasila.
Hvala vam za povabilo.
Ja, super je bilo, krasno, čau.
Ciao.
Ja, hvala, Kaja. Ja, daj pozdrav mene. Laura, hvala, super. Evo.